Great. So hi, everyone. I am Gretchen Wegner from the Anti-Boring Approach to Powerful Studying. And I am so excited that we are now towards the end here of our free summer workshop series. And Huzefa Kapadia will be with us shortly. I'm going to bring him in once I get us going here so we can really look at how to raise our math scores on all kinds of tests, whether we're high school students or whether we're taking the ACT, SAT, or whether, like some of us, we're going on into college. So I'll introduce him in just a moment. One thing that I do want to let you know before we get started is that I'm really going to try to save some time to take some of your direct questions and let Huzefa coach some of you in person if you would like that. And the way we're going to do, in fact, I'm wondering if there's someone right now who is a volunteer who would be willing to have me show you how it works to be able to ask a question with your voice or on video. So if you are a willing participant and are willing to let me, it'll take just like 20 seconds for me to demo how it works to upgrade you. That would be wonderful. And you can just put that in the Q&A. Also, for those of you who are arriving, I'm also interested in the Q&A to know a little bit more about who you are and where you're from and what grade level you are. So please put that in as we go. All right. While I'm waiting to see if I have any volunteers, I am going to bring in our expert of the day. So, and actually, I'm doing something called promoting Huzefa to panelist right now, which is actually what I will be doing for any of you who have questions later on in our presentation. So actually, I guess maybe Huzefa is our model here. And let's see, did it happen? Are you here? Are you with us? I am. So Huzefa, I just did the whole promoting you thing. I'm not seeing you pop in though. So if you want to send me a text, here you're coming. Here you're coming. And John said you would volunteer as well. That's fabulous. So 2 more seconds, Huzefa. Let me get John in here to show everyone how this works. So if John had a question, which maybe you will later, I will click on your name and promote you to panelist, and then you're coming right up, John. Here you are. Hey.
Hello.
Good. So, and for folks who don't want to use their camera, you can turn off your camera on the lower left-hand side of your screen. But thank you so much, John. So maybe you'll be in towards the end with some questions for us.
Sure.
Thanks. I'm going to take you out now. But it's so nice to meet your face. And great. Okay, so here we are. I am so thrilled that you are here with us today, Huzefa. I so enjoyed when you came on the College Prep podcast and interviewed us. And so welcome officially to the Anti-Boring series.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. You can you hear me okay?
Hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. So I've got my microphone in via my headphones, so hopefully it will come across clear. Just to let you guys know, if you guys see this, I don't panic or freak out. I'm totally fine. I had to go to the hospital yesterday, but it's all good. I have a little bit of they had to make an incision in my face, but it's no big deal. So anyways, don't be distracted by the large bandage. Hi guys. So my name is Huzefa Kapadia. Thank you for the intro. Before we get going, I just want to tell you a little bit about my background.
Great.
So before I got into teaching and creating education materials on Udemy, Udemy is, again, for those of you guys who are unfamiliar, it's an amazing platform where you can create video courses on all different topics. They have courses on software, math, chemistry, body language, an array of topics. Anything you want to learn, you can essentially go to that website and check it out, see if there's something for you. And it's free courses as well as paid courses. So before I got into that, I was actually a software engineer for about 3 years, and then I went to law school, and then I became a patent litigator, patent attorney. So I used to work with technology companies, protecting their IP, protecting their inventions, suing on their behalf, defending them from other lawsuits, from other companies, etc. So I did that for about 4 years. I eventually left in 2013, so about 2 years ago, because I enjoyed it, I guess, to a small certain degree, but it just wasn't something that I was very passionate about. So I did some soul searching, and I decided that I wanted to pursue something education related, in particular, primarily focusing around math, because that's what I love. And that's why I'm here now. For the last 2 years, I've been working with students one-on-one, and it's been incredibly rewarding. And then I sort of got the idea to start making video courses, because I love that too. I'm sort of just following things that I enjoy. That's my general path. And it's been even more rewarding and fun. And so that's my little intro.
So, and I'm curious, what kind of a math student were you when you were in high school and college?
Well, I mean, by the time I was in high school, I was doing really well. I think it's actually where you really want to start the clock is probably in fourth grade. So in fourth grade, I was about an average math student. And what spurred me on, and this is sort of where this is part of the reason why I think mental math is so important, but also I've seen it work. I've seen it work wonders. Well, so in fourth grade, we were taking these series of multiplication tests, and I was kind of in middle of the pack at best, not doing very well. Multiplication, division, all by hand. And so I wasn't doing that well. And then my parents sat down with me and had me essentially memorize the multiplication table over and over routinely until I committed it to, I mean, it's so deeply ingrained in me at that point. And now that I just became lightning fast, I got faster than pretty much everybody in my class. And from that point moving forward, it ingrained a certain level of confidence in me that just carried me through. So now the way that I always had approached math in high school and college, etc., was just from a point of, I know I'll get it. I know I'll figure it out, but it's just a matter of when or how or who I have to ask. And that's an important pivotal point. And I've seen so many people reach that thought it was impossible. You have this term called math anxiety, which is an actual term. And it relates to how people feel when they, let's say, sit down to do their math homework or approach a test. And a lot of people, they have a fear, a natural fear that maybe they've associated with some negative memories in relation to math. And so they don't approach it from that right mindset. They think that they're not going to be able to figure stuff out, and that can sort of really derail you. So the idea is to uproot that belief by starting at the basics with mental math. Because honestly, I've seen anybody can get lightning fast with it. I have a course on Udemy. Some of you guys may be enrolled in it. It's called 24 Days to Multiplication Mastery. I'm going to try and make it fun with music and having some sort of rhythmic elements to it. The reason why I made that course and the reason why I made it free is because it's so fundamental. It's really not that difficult to do, but I'm trying to encourage kids to take the time and try and commit all that stuff to muscle memory.
Right. And I would say, I mean, I'm an academic life coach who works with a number of students, and I would say that most of my clients don't really feel very fluent with their mental math. I mean, I don't feel very fluent with it either, although I'm not taking math courses anymore. So I know it's one of those things where I can imagine that someone's like, come on, I'm a junior, I'm a senior, I'm going into college. Like, seriously, I need to go back and take a multiplication course? So how would you address that if people are thinking that right now?
Well, if you're a junior and you're taking the SAT or ACT, mental math is so incredibly important, because whether or not, I mean, yeah, you can even if you can use a calculator or going to, which I encourage, you should. I have an article about this. Mental math will reduce the likelihood of mistakes to such a great level for two reasons. One, if you're really fast, I don't even look at my calculator when I do SAT questions. Let me hold on, backtrack for a second. Maybe there's 1% of them that I'll double check something. But if you get relatively decent with mental math, you don't ever need it. And so the beauty of that is it speeds you up. I mean, you go so lightning fast when you can do that. I mean, this is just because I practice, not because I'm a genius, but I've practiced these problems over and over and over. So it's just like nothing to me now. And anybody can reach that level. You just have to put in the time. The other reason is that in a lot of ways, calculators, you can actually, once you get your mental math really solid, you're more likely to make a mistake on your calculator just by typing something in wrong. So if you don't have the mental math ability to back you up, because like I can type something in just to verify, and my mental math's good enough where I know approximately what I should be getting. And if it's off, I know right away. I can tell. But if you're not to that point, you have no idea. And if you don't double check it, then you're out of luck. So it's like, the calculator will be your last resort to verify things, but you have no proper reference point if your mental math is weak.
Got it. And so one of the things I'm looking at, and by the way, those of you who are coming on new, please do pop into the Q&A and tell us who you are, what your grade level is, and what your math, like what you're here for, because I'll try and work it in as I'm asking Huzefa questions. And so, for example, Lizzie is a rising junior and is going to be taking the SAT, I think I saw in the fall. And she says that she really needs to work on timing. So I'm actually wondering if this whole mental math piece is really part of the timing equation.
Yes. 100%.
Okay.
I don't know if there's timing issues that she's asking as well about the verbal part. That's different, but yeah, dude, of course, for the math part, the mental math is the main thing. Well, it's a combination. I mean, that's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole thing. The other thing is you should just do tons and tons and tons of practice problems. I mean, just tons and tons of them if you have the time. So I imagine the earliest you'll be taking it, I think the first test date is October 3rd. I can't see her question actually, but if you can verify if that's when she's taking it.
She didn't say, so you could let us know, Lizzie, when you're taking it.
Yeah, so Lizzie, if you're taking it on October 3rd, you have so much time. I remember when I did my own SAT preparation as a kid, I took I think around 20 practice tests, which I mean you can take more. When I was studying for the LSAT, I took about 30, and that's another way that you're gonna crank your speed up. Is you just look, okay, here's the beautiful thing about standardized tests. They have to follow a certain formula to ensure consistency from year to year, test to test, in order to compare people on a somewhat balanced scale. So the beauty of that is that you can kind of take advantage of the system. There's a particular formula, which means there's a very low likelihood that you're actually going to be thrown a curveball that you can't anticipate if you have a wide enough range of test material. So off the bat, at a bare minimum, this isn't even enough in my opinion. At a bare minimum, you should take every single test in the Big Blue Book. These are official tests from the College Board, and I think they release it every year. But yeah, I mean, you take the most recent one and blast through those 10 exams at a minimum. Then you can go to some other resources, Princeton Review, Kaplan, Barron's has an SAT book that's not bad either. And then you go through those as well. If you're actually registered with Kaplan, with their program, I think they have also other SATs on file. So the idea is you take these tests over and over until you get so comfortable and familiar with the testing format, with the types of questions. So guess what? Not only are you faster, your anxiety level is going to drop way down when you go on the test day. So that's another component. Like I wasn't nervous. I was a little nervous, but barely at all. As soon as I saw the test, my anxiety disappeared, because you just have that little voice in your head that like, wow, what if they completely change it, which is impossible? What if that happens? And then as soon as you see it, and it's like, it's just like the practice test.
I got
totally
this.
Fine. Yeah, so you calm down.
Cool. So Lizzie did say she's taking it October 3rd. And before, I do want to move kind of into our specific, like our 6 tips. But before we do that, can you address, for those people like Jordan, who's on the line, who is going into college and just hasn't historically done well in math in high school and so wants to do better in college. Can you talk about this thing like practice tests, like you were just saying for the ACT? That may or may not be possible when you're just in a regular math class, but can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So if you can, and Jordan, if you could also type what math you're going into, I'm just curious. But so practice tests, they are, okay, so there's 2 ways to handle it when you're in a math class, whether it's college or high school. The first way, of course, your best resource is your textbook. It's going to have, I mean, like that's what I've always done historically, and that's what everybody should do. That's what I do with my students, is you make basically artificial practice exams based on the homework that's been assigned. Usually a lot of times teachers will assign the odds, then you can go back through the evens or other odds. It's obviously better if you can actually look up the answer. There's ways to, I assume you're taking some sort of pre-calc or calculus class, but there's, for derivatives and integrals, let's say that you don't have the answers to, there's a website called Wolfram or hold on. Let me just, I'm going to look it up as I'm talking because I want to give it to you. It's so useful. But anyways, you can verify.
Actually, once you find it too, let's have you share the screen so you can show it to us. But you keep on talking to us while you're looking for it.
All right. So it's Wolfram Alpha. So I'll share the screen right now. Let me do that here. If I can figure out how to share screen.
Yeah, it's just a little click on the bottom of it. There's a share screen button.
All
And
right, can you see my screen?
we can. And let me just say quickly, Jordan said he's completed a summer intermediate algebra class and he's waitlisted to go into pre-cal.
Got it. Okay. So this is still relevant. So Wolfram, so you see this website right here. It's so cool. It not only will help, it not only gives you a means to essentially find out, verify if your answer is correct or incorrect. So pre-calc, you won't be dealing with integrals or derivatives, but whatever it may be, you can still make various function calculations, etc. It'll give you the answer, but it also gives you step-by-step explanations. This wasn't around when I was in high school or college, but it's such a great tool. And you can write down that URL right there. It's great. It's a great tool. Okay, so now let's talk about how you can really get yourself ready and prepare yourself. One thing you can do as well, as I work with students in this way. I have 2 girls that I'm starting with in 2 weeks, or some point after August 5th, where I'm basically one is in high school, one is in middle school, and one is starting algebra 2, the other one, I believe, pre-algebra. So what are we going to do? We're going to spend the month of August where I'm going to actually prepare them as best I can for the first few months of school. So how am I doing that? Well, I'm having them give me the textbook name and go ahead and get the syllabus or syllabi for the 2 girls. And I'm going to plot out a study program for them where I'm going to assign them homework. And you don't need a tutor to necessarily do this. You can do it on your own. But when questions arise, that's what their mom wants me to essentially set a regimen, keep them up to speed, work with them 3 to 4 times a week. So that's one awesome way. You can hire a tutor off Wyzant in your area. I don't know, Jordan, if you could tell me what area you are in as well. But anyways, you can hire a tutor from Wyzant in your area. I'm on Wyzant. You can see the ratings, how many people.
That? I don't know how to.
Yeah. Let me share my screen again. Wyzant is so good. It's so great for people who are interested in tutoring too. It's a great way to reach out and find students. I think it's going to go
exactly the way it sounds.
yeah. So there's Wyzant.
Great.
For students and tutors. Okay, so hopefully you guys got that. Anyways, find a tutor and you can do it that way. Now, let's say you choose not to do that. Now, when the school year starts, how are you going to approach class? First of all, never skip class, ever. If you're starting as a freshman, going to class will just make such a huge difference. Not going to class, unless you really feel confident or you have a particular affinity for math, I would not recommend doing that because it just gets you in a hole. Always do your homework. Some math classes, they won't require you to do homework, but they'll assign it. And your grades will be completely from the tests and quizzes. Do your homework routinely. And then when you're getting up to a test, this is a general strategy for all math classes. You don't study like you do for biology or chemistry where you review your notes. You do practice problems. You have to. It's the only way. So you do a lot of practice problems very thoroughly so that, just like with the SAT and the ACT, you're not likely to have a curveball thrown at you. Moreover, with the practice, you're going to be faster. So you're going to blast through these problems in a much more efficient manner.
Let me just duck in here to say that many of my clients who are high school students will do practice problems, but they won't actually find out whether they did them accurately. Or many teachers, when teachers have like too many students, they have students do the homework, but my clients never ever know if they did it right. And so I feel like I want to jump in and say, isn't that an important piece of it? Not just to do the practice problem, but to make sure that you did it well.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Of course, I actually should have mentioned that because I do know students sometimes do that. So when I go through and I sit down with my kids who are younger, and sometimes I'll sit down with them as they do their homework, I make them basically, I ingrain this one rule in their head, which is every time you finish one problem, you don't check your answers at the end. You finish a problem, you keep your pencil in the answer section, you flip and you check it immediately. So you're constantly seeing along the way, am I following the right steps? And if not, you can correct it right there. The same thing has to be true with standardized tests. You're probably losing about 60% of the value of taking the practice test if you don't check your answers. You have to check your answers, and the ones that you get wrong, you have to figure out how to do them. That's instrumental. That's the whole process. Also, if there's questions that you got right, but you weren't sure, you circled them, you can go back and review them as well, and the answers, try and find out how they were actually done, especially if you're just straight up guessing. But yeah, of course.
If you're taking, though, a standardized test, you don't want to check it right after you're done, though, with the problem. You
That's
then
true.
want it because you need to practice the timing, right?
That's true. If you're doing the practice for the standardized tests, that's another thing that I say is that I mean, all these test companies say the same thing. You take it in a test like environment where you time yourself, you're quiet, you do it in exactly how you're supposed to take it on test day. That'll again make you feel more comfortable for test day. But it's different with the SAT too, with the SAT as well, because when you're in a class, you're usually going chapter by chapter, topic by topic. So the reason why you want to check for every answer is because it's usually all along the same lines and getting progressively more and more difficult. That's it, but it's all like the same type of thing. So if you're messing up early on, you want to know. It's different with the SAT because you go from algebra to geometry to like a graph question to a data analysis question, etc.
Right. Right. Awesome. So helpful. Okay. So let's actually step back just a little bit. I think you've mentioned some of your 6 tips already, but for those of you who are out there taking notes, and I'm taking notes on the whiteboard over here, what are the 6 biggest things that people need to know if they're wanting to raise their math scores?
Sure. All right, let's do it. Oh, and by the way, Giuliana Presid, I heard that you're from Rio de Janeiro, so I'll try to say, eu falo pouco português e eu moro em Rio para 3 semanas. Whatever. I think I'm trying to say I was there for like 3 weeks. A couple
Well done. And by the way, for you to know, Giuliana is a rising senior, and she's taking the SAT this fall too. And we also have another, Matthew is going to be taking linear algebra and calculus at his first year at college. So we really have people across the board here.
Okay, cool. Well, these tips will be very universal because we're not going to dive into, well, I mean, actually I can, but for the most part, we won't dive into particular like math questions related to particular subjects. These are general tips. All right, so I have this article on my company website. It's just called Scalar Learning. And that is, let me just show you the article really quickly. You can see what I'm looking at. So Scalar Learning, just to give you a little background. Okay, so that's my website. That's my company. Scalar is that it has a few different meanings, but I'm using the math meaning, which has to do with matrix multiplication. Scalar is like a number or constant that you multiply across all the values. So I thought it was a cool analogy for a teacher, basically amplifying the abilities of his or her students. All right, so I'll come back here. Okay, so this article, I'm talking about six tips for math excellence. So the first one, master mental math. So I've already talked about this quite a bit, but yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's going to increase your speed, and the best thing about it, in my opinion, is it's going to just bolster your confidence. You know, it's really funny when you are out with your friends and somebody has to do a calculation. Let's say they're calculating the tip or a restaurant bill, or just some mundane calculation that needs to be done. And I guarantee you blast off that calculation faster than anybody at the table. Everybody's going to look at you like, whoa, you're really smart, right? And it's just because you practice the math and you've gotten really good at it. Like, I'm lightning fast because I practice a lot. It's not because I'm a genius. So it's like, but it's cool because when you start having people look at you that way, you start thinking, all right, well, maybe I'm good at math. And the belief will then create, that positive feedback will create a new belief, and it'll give you a much better approach. So mental math, can't say that enough. Like I said, I have a free course. If you're not enrolled, check it out. 24 days to multiplication mastery.
And we'll put a link to that when I send out the video or the recording. We'll give everyone a link so they can go directly there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and it's to music, and I'm more or less rapping the numbers, kind of. So you might find that amusing. All right, number 2. So this is especially the case with standardized tests. So I say highlight answers that you are less than 80% sure of. Okay, so you might think that's kind of a high number, right? 80%. Now, maybe let's say if this were a different type of class, a social science class, a hard science class, whatever it may be, that would be probably high. But the thing is with math is that once you know the formulas and you've had the requisite practice, it's one subject where you can be pretty certain when you've gotten a right answer. I mean, most questions, especially when I'm taking SAT questions, I'm usually somewhere between like 90 and 100% sure that I've gotten the question right, because you get neat answers. Like, you know how to do it. You know the exact process, and a lot of times when you start a problem, you know what it's probably going to come out to be. Like, you have a rough idea. So it's like in math, there's a very direct path. So in these cases where it's just a little bit, you're unsure, circle it. Then you come back to it later, all right? So what you do is you keep going through the problems that you have no issue with, blast through those, and then at the end, you come back and you look at the ones that you
Got it. So just a clarification, because I realized I think I misunderstood you at the beginning. You're not highlighting the answer in the multiple choice section. You're highlighting the whole question that you're less than 80% sure of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I may have misstated that. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So you're going to reassess that problem later. You may have gotten it right, and then you can think about it with a bit of a clear head.
Great.
Okay, so number 3, some of these are a bit common sense. Write clearly and neatly. Okay, so this is across the board important, but with math, I think it's actually in a lot of ways very important because a simple error, especially kids who like to work fast. I have one client in LA. He's just starting 9th grade this year, which is crazy. But he's kind of like me in that he likes to go fast. When I first worked with him, he did everything in his head. His mental math is actually very good. But the problem is when you're doing algebraic equations, if you do everything in your head, you're gonna make mistakes. Like it's just gonna happen. But you write it out, you show your work. That's gonna make sure that you don't, that you can basically fix those problems. So anyways, right?
Go ahead. Like single calculations are the things that you want to be doing in your head. Like if you're multiplying two big numbers against each other, that's what you do in your head, but you don't necessarily solve an entire equation in your head.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just take a single variable equation where you're trying to isolate a variable. The arithmetic operations such as division, multiplication. Yeah, I mean, you can write those out. Like, right, when you isolate a variable, let's say you have, try and envision this. Let's say you have 3x equals 18, okay? You have 3x equals 18. So now you want to isolate x. I think all of you guys have taken algebra. So what do? Sort of do the opposite of what that 3 is doing to the variable. So you're trying to isolate the x. So now you divide both sides by 3. Oh, thank you. Yep. So you divide both sides by 3. So the way you'd write that, you do underscore 3. Exactly. And then now you don't have to actually write out the long division. You probably do the division in your head. And then the final step is you just cross off those 3's and now you got x equals, you got x equals 6. Okay. So that's what I mean, right? You just go step by step. You're showing each little operation or manipulation that you're doing, but you don't write the actual long division or multiplication stuff out. Unless you absolutely have to. So that's the idea, but do it clearly, neatly. And also when I say neatly, you want to do it just like Gretchen did, in a linear fashion from top to bottom. All right. Top to bottom, clean, nice, and make sure everything is easy to read. So I can't tell you how many times students misread their own writing to their own detriment.
Good. So mine was neat. I get thumbs up for that, huh? I wasn't sure.
You get thumbs up. You get bonus points. All right. So now, next, I've talked about this as well. Take several timed practice exams before the real deal. So especially with the standardized tests, you have to do this under real test taking environments. So sit down in a quiet area. Don't take a break in the middle to eat dinner or something like that. Just take it just like you have the breaks. You have a break in the middle actually, but take a break that's exactly the same amount of time that on the real thing. Sit down, time yourself, etc. So you do that, and it's just going to get your mind ready for essentially game day. If you're just in a regular math class, right? It doesn't have to be as specific because it's going to be a little bit more flexible, but the same thing applies in general. Try and do it quickly. If it's a no calculator test, obviously do the problems without a calculator.
Yeah, and I actually really love this suggestion for people who are just in regular math classes, because a client last year, who I actually think I talked to you also a little bit when we did the podcast, he does tons of practice problems just like you suggest, tons of them, and he still is making D's on his test, partially because of silly mistakes. And it occurs to me that one of the things that I was not having him do was taking one of his practice tests in a more rushed environment, because it's the rushed environment of school that's making it hard for him to concentrate. And so that's where he needs to practice his mental math, I think, but then he also needs to sit down, and if he knows that he's got a 45-minute period to take a test in, then he really should try and plow through as many problems in the chapter test at the back of the book in 45 minutes to create that slightly more stressful feeling.
Is his main issue that he's not finishing in time, or he's just getting incorrect answers?
It's incorrect answers. And when we go back and look at it, it's just silly things that in hindsight, he's like, oh, I knew that. Or sometimes it was a mental math, like a calculation problem. And sometimes it's just silly mistakes that he always gets them right when he's doing his homework practice problems, and he always gets them wrong in the testing environment. And I think that's an anxiety thing. And I think,
is he in algebra, or what class is he in?
I think he was in either algebra 2 or pre-cal, higher level.
Higher level? Okay. All right. Well, anyways, let me think about that, because another thing too is there's ways, depending on what type of area you're in, there's ways to check your answers. Because a lot of times, like for example, a simple way in pre-algebra or algebra, when you're dealing with single variable equations, if you have the time, because sometimes school tests, you have more latitude as far as going back and checking your work, just because they're not as strictly timed like the SAT or the ACT. You can go back and you can just plug in all your answers. Just basically do the questions in reverse. That is such a surefire way to make sure you don't make any silly mistakes. And then if it's pre-calc or algebra 2, depending on the subject matter, there's different ways that you can verify the answers. I had my student who's in pre-algebra do exactly that, because he's super on top of it. He gets it. He understands conceptually everything, but it's just silly mistakes that bog him down.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so what tip was that? Was that number 5? That
was number 4.
Number 4. Okay, good. So give us number 5.
Number 5 is stop using calculators on homework. And also, actually, in my opinion, it's on homework, but it's also to an extent on exams, not completely, but it's your last line of defense. Like, you go through and you should answer the problem from start to finish. Okay, there's exceptions to this. I mean, if you're dealing with crazy scientific notation, multiplication problems where you just have to, but usually, especially when you're dealing with algebra, even most like pre-calculus questions, you just try and work through it on your own up until you absolutely need a calculator. Or then if you want, you can go back and double check your work with the calculator just to verify. It's another way of just checking your answers. But if you constantly reach for it every time you're doing a multiplication or division, I'm telling you, my opinion, that makes you in the long term more prone to errors versus just nailing that mental math and then not having to think about it. Okay, so get into the habit of doing that. Stop yourself from reaching for the calculator. I don't let any of my kids grab the calculator
when they're in the tutoring sessions with you.
Oh yeah, no, there's no reason to, unless you need a function on a calculator, a specific function that you can't do in your head. Yeah, of course not. There's no reason. I mean, because my kids eventually you can do 2-digit multiplication too in your head. It's just, you just have to break it down. Like, if a simple example is if you do 3, let's say 13 times 12. Okay, so okay, you can write 13 times 12. I'll quickly kind of explain how you do it in your head.
Oops, wrong marker.
All right. So you have 13 times 12. All right. So you might say, well, I need to write it out and multiply it. Well, actually, can you write it in a column? So 12 below the 13. Okay. So now let's say you're multiplying these two. Okay. So you just look at this as 2 different math problems, and then it becomes much easier. First, you're multiplying 13 times 2, and then you're multiplying 10 times 2. So if you kind of draw a line in between the 1 and the 2 for the 12.
Right here?
Yeah. So it's just 2 different math problems. First, you're multiplying 10 times 13, and then you're adding that to whatever you get from 2 times 13. And those 2 problems in and of themselves are not that hard, and I'll show you why. All right, 10 times 13. What do you do anytime you multiply a number times 10? You just add a 0. So that's 130. So you keep 130 in this part of your brain, okay? Then you say, all right, well, let's do 2 times 13. I think most of you can do that in your head, hopefully. But 2 times 13 is 26. So now you've got, right, 130 and 26, and then you just add those. And it may take you a second, but it's 156. So it's not too bad, right? 156. And that's how I teach my kids to do all these 2-digit multiplication problems. The beauty of it is, once your single-digit multiplication is on fire, it's not hard to adapt it to that little additional tweak.
I can see that that's a really wonderful, I know we're sort of toward the end of the summer, but there's still a month left. I can really see that almost everybody watching, and I would even say not just the kids, but parents. Like, I dare you parents, like, take this on as a family during the month of August to everyone get better at mental math. It's good for our older brains as well as the younger brains.
I'm quicker now than my dad, but for a long time, my dad's my dad's amazing at math, and everybody loves it. Like, I love it too. And that's why I'm working with math right now. But I got to say, my dad is really passionate about math. But Well, I think, anyways, I think I'm faster than him now. I don't know.
You don't have to do
It
a
was just
math off.
from a lot of practice. Yeah. And my dad doesn't practice math anymore, so that's probably why. But anyways, yeah, you can make, yeah, you want to have a competition with your parents and beat them. That's got to be pretty awesome.
Love it.
I'm sure it's doable.
Have a
All
high
right.
stakes prize for the winner of the math off.
That's a good idea too. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So finally, okay, tip number 6, pump up your mental state. So this is, okay, so this is not really related to math. This is related to a lot of different things. So I'm going to talk about how you essentially combat math anxiety or any sort of stress related things. And when I first wrote this, I just talked primarily about one method, which has to do with body language, which is another area of passion of mine. I'm working on a book right now. It should be done in about a month. But anyway, so you can actually change your mental state and your emotional state and your level of confidence very directly by changing your body language. So you ever noticed, right, your mom probably lectured you growing up, I know mine did, about sitting up straight, standing up straight, keeping your shoulders back. There's a reason why it's usually mothers versus fathers that are keeping a watchful eye on this. And it's because, in general, women subconsciously and sometimes consciously too are much more they're much more observant of what people are doing with their bodies and what kind of message it sends. It has to do with various evolutionary reasons, in particular something called the tender befriend response. But anyways, it's instrumental historically to survival. And so your mom is always going to be reminding you of this stuff. And I used to have horrible posture as a kid, like very hunched over and closed off, and it influences the way you feel about yourself. Now, everybody will admit that, of course, when you feel happy, you're going to take on what's called a power pose, victory stance, or whatever. You can stand up straight, smile. Okay? So nobody will ever deny that. You say usually it's a reflection of what you're feeling. But the reverse is true. And that was discovered primarily by Amy Cuddy. She's a professor at Harvard Business School. And she found it by studying these things that are called power poses. So this is really cool. When you take on victory stance or power pose for about 2 minutes, this is according to her study, it has 2 distinct effects on the human body. And they both go towards the same ends. Your testosterone levels, responsible for confidence, spike. It's about 20-25% spike. This is just for 2 minutes of doing this, by the way.
And we should say women and men have testosterone in them, just different levels, but it's
exactly 100%, and it has the same effect. And conversely, it dropped the cortisol levels about, I can't remember if it's 20 or 25%. So you have this concurrent jump in testosterone and drop in cortisol. What's cortisol responsible for? Stress. Right? It's what makes you feel stressed out, anxious, etc. So what they found is that by doing these power poses, it changes that dynamic, and you'll feel it instantly. I mean, try it today. Try doing a power pose in the mirror. It's really fun. Like you
do it now while you're watching, everyone.
Yeah, go for it.
Go
for it. And by the way, the inspiration for this study was just the notion that smiling, forcing yourself to smile, makes you feel happy, which it does. I mean, you can try that too. But I think the power poses are really cool. So what I say is that she recommends doing this before job interviews. I recommend doing this even if you're going on a date or you're going out with your friends or something and you're feeling nervous. Go in the mirror and do a power pose for 2 minutes and see how it makes you feel. So before a test, if you're feeling anxious, go in the mirror or whatever. If you're at school somewhere,
you have to watch yourself. Does it have to be on a mirror?
No, you don't have to do it. I just usually like to do it like that. Okay, but yeah, you can do it anywhere. Yeah, but you can do it anywhere and just take out a power pose. This is my favorite. Another one is where you kind of stand with your hands on your hips like this. That's a power pose. But the idea is stand tall, be big, make your body big. And that's what's going to affect the change in kind of like the hormone balance. Okay, so that's one. That's one way to do it. And like I said, try it. It sounds kooky, but it's really cool. And Amy Cuddy has a great TED Talk on this topic.
Cool.
Okay, number 2. This is something that I've been toying around with lately as well. I've been reading a few different books on breathing. Breathing is also a very direct way to calm your state and get relaxed. So there's something in particular. It's super easy to do. It's called coherent breathing. You can download an app for this on iTunes. So basically all you do for 20 minutes, and you can shorten it to 10 minutes. I mean, try it for 5 or 10 minutes initially. All you do is you take 5 breaths per minute, So you slow your breathing to the point where you're doing 6 seconds per inhalation, 6 seconds per exhalation. The app is there because it's a timed thing where it plays a gong, so you know to breathe out, breathe in, and you do it in a gentle way, not where you're overinflating your lungs. But you try that, and it's crazy the calming effect that it will have on your body. Because there's such a direct relationship between your breathing rate and your heart rate and various other hormones that can make you more or less anxious. That's number 2. Number 3, and this is one that it's kind of like the weirdest one, but it's also my favorite, and it's because it's my most recent discovery. So I have a friend of mine. He's a professional poker player. He played for some of like the largest stakes in online poker in the history of online poker. He recently retired. And he's the one that introduced me to this. So he's now completely changed the direction of his life, and he's trying to figure out all these different ways. He's gotten very interested in psychology. So he's discovered this thing called tapping. Okay, it's really bizarre, but it's similar to acupuncture. So acupuncture, you have particular meridian points on your body that when they basically put needles into those points, right, they've noticed it to have a calming effect. I hate needles. I'm terrified of needles. I would never get acupuncture, but I'm intrigued by it. There's actually a fair amount of good data backing up the effects anyways. People aren't totally sure why. EFT or tapping, sorry, is the same thing. Use the same meridian points. And there's actually amazing evidence backing this up as far as how it affects your mood, your heart rate, etc. So you just like this is very simple. This is my 2 favorite meridian points. It's right below the collarbone. Mm-hmm. And what you can do is you just start tapping. Yeah, just like this, like about 4 to 8 times a second. And as you're tapping, it's important to start thinking about whatever your math test is tripping you out and say, okay, why is this stressing me out? It's going to be okay. And the idea is to then confront whatever is making you anxious. And what this does, according to the research does, is it shuts off the fear response in your amygdala. And the amygdala is the part of your brain that instantiates this fear response to all these random stimuli that are there to protect your life, but it's misfires nowadays because these dangers aren't actual life or death situations, just random anxiety. So it's an overblown security system that you can help to temper and basically turn off by doing this. Or you can just do it for 5 minutes, but you'll notice it. I notice it immediately. Anytime I'm stressed, it just immediately gives me a calming feeling. Now the question is, go ahead.
Well, would it make sense, like even if you're in the midst of the math test and you're feeling yourself starting to stress out, like with one hand to just go ahead and tap? Like I can hear it a little bit. It's a little loud when I do it on my skin, but it makes me think if I were to wear clothes, it's a little less loud and I could just do that while I'm writing.
Okay, the only thing that I'd be, because you know how high school kids are, the only thing I would be a little bit, like some people might be like, what is that guy doing? Why is he like tapping himself? It looks kind of crazy. Yeah. So like if you want to do in a test, my first recommendation would be to slow your breathing. Slow down your breathing and try and get, hopefully you can get familiar with what it's like to take a 6-second inhalation and exhalation. And slow your breathing first. And then the second thing to do is fix your posture while you're seated. Stand up straight, bring your shoulders back, and do what you can in the small space that you have. But yeah, try those 2 things if you start feeling nervous to calm yourself down.
Well, and actually, can I just throw in one other little tip that is possible to do during a test? It's doing this and then this. I know it like if you don't do it for too long, it can just look like you're sitting thinking. And I have a client who tried, this is from Brain Gym, and he discovered that this really calmed him down during tests. I was really surprised that he said he felt it so immediately.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going to have to research this as well. Maybe I'll include this in my book too. What is this called?
I think this particular piece is from Brain Gym, and it has to do with crossing the left and the right sides of your corpus callosum in your brain, because you're crossing like this. And it's even better if you cross your legs too. And it is something, again, that you can kind of do without people noticing too much while you're doing it.
Okay. Interesting. Fascinating. Okay. So that's basically my 6 tips for math excellence.
Okay. So just run them by us just really quickly in a list in case any of you are taking notes. I just want to have you have an opportunity to double check.
All right. So we have got, let's see. All right. So number 1, again, master mental math. I put it at number 1 because I do think it's the most important. Number 2, you're going to highlight answers that you are less than 80% sure of. Number 3, write clearly and neatly. Number 4, take several time practice exams before the real test. And like I said, with math, this is especially important. That's the way you study. Number 5, stop using calculators on homework and exams. Again, just with the caveat that you can use a calculator to check yourself on an exam, but otherwise, try and put it away. And number 6, learn how to pump your mental state before an exam or even during an exam. And the 3 things that I talked about in particular were power poses. You can Google that if you want. Amy Cuddy as well, CUDDY. Coherent breathing, which is just basically slowing your breathing, and then tapping.
Nice. Nice. So I want to, in just a second, I want to hear, like, if you have any final, like, important things to share with everybody, I want to hear that. But I just want to prep those of you who are listening. We have about 15 minutes left, and I'm hoping to save the last 10 minutes for any of your questions. And you can ask those questions inside the Q&A section if you want to type. And if you would like me to bring you up either just your audio or with your video too, so that you can actually have a little conversation back and forth with Huzefa and I, please just indicate that in the Q&A as well. So we'll give you a few minutes to decide what your questions and curiosities are. And why don't you, like, anything else you want to, like, make sure we walk away with today?
Okay, well, really quickly, because I know we have, who was it again taking the October 3rd SAT?
Yeah, there were a few people taking it. I'm forgetting the J names. We have a lot of J names on today, but Giuliana was one.
I know Giuliana. Oh, so she's taking it as well from Brazil.
Oh, no. Yeah, she's taking the SAT this fall, and then Lizzie is taking it. It's Lizzie who's taking it October 3rd.
Okay. Lizzie, okay, October 3rd. So for you guys, for anybody who's about to take a standardized test, I want to talk about, because as much as I emphasize taking lots and lots of practice tests, working hard, I want to make sure that you know that for what to do the day before the test, because this can kind of, if you handle this incorrectly, I mean, actually, this even happened to me in law school for my first ever final. I think I slept for contracts. I think I slept barely 2 hours just because I was so stressed out. It was hard to shut down my brain. Yeah. And the reason why that is because I was studying until way too late at night the day before. And there was really no reason to. By that point, you know what you know. You just study out of anxiety or nervousness. You just don't want to be idle. So what happens is then you're stressed out. You can't fall asleep, and then you're just not as sharp on test day. So I have an article that I've written on this as well. So I'm just going to kind of go through it. I basically lay out a itinerary from starting at 4 p.m. on the Friday before the exam. All right. I'll actually share my screen so you can look ahead.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Okay. So you see here, right? So the Friday before the exam, I wrote the little background. We can skip that.
And can you actually make it bigger, like do the zoom in a little bit so we can really see the text?
Okay, let's see. Oops, it's not zooming in. Hold on. Don't you go like this?
It's like Command +2 can do it, I think.
Command +2. Uh-oh. What happened?
You got the plus there. Oh, I don't want to mess things up.
Let me try plus. Here we go. All right, I got it. So it's just Command plus or Open Apple plus. Yeah, Command plus. Okay, perfect. Let's see. Yes, perfect. Alrighty, so very simple. Friday before, you're gonna make sure you got everything in order. Obviously, this goes without saying. You show up on test day, you don't have your photo ID, you don't have your admission ticket, you don't have your pencils, whatever it may be. You're gonna be so stressed out, and even if you get stuff settled in, your adrenaline levels will be spiked. And what does that mean? That means that, okay, maybe at the beginning you're amped up, but eventually they're gonna crash, and you're gonna get really tired about a quarter or halfway through the test. So 4 p.m. Friday before, make sure you have your photo ID, your admission ticket, your pencils and eraser, your calculator with brand new batteries. Okay, make sure they're brand new just to avoid any possibility of any sort of mishaps. If you're bringing a watch, make sure that it is an approved watch that they're not going to confiscate so you can have proper time management. Verify your test center location. Okay. where you're going to enter, so you have no doubt in your mind when you show up, and set your alarm right off the bat. Boom. Okay. Now that is your last test related duty. After this, you don't think about the test. You don't take any practice tests. You don't do anything after you've made all these things. Now you're just going to try and relax. So what I suggest first, 5 p.m. exercise. This will help to tire you out. I love tennis, or I like going to the gym. So whatever you like to do, that will really tire you out. Get in like an amazing workout that'll hopefully also be fun. Tennis is amazing cardio if you like soccer, basketball, etc. Okay, number 6. Now you're going to have your nice big dinner, but not something that's going to be loaded with sugars and too much. I mean, really, sugar is the main culprit. You don't want, I mean, you want to be careful. No like crazy fast food, but you can eat really good stuff that's healthy. What do I recommend? Yeah, like stir fries with fish or chicken. They can still be amazing, like really tasty, and you can fill up and eat a lot, but eat good stuff that's not going to make you feel weird or have like a sugar crash in the morning. And you'll be surprised how many things have sugar in it. So stay away from a lot of simple carbs, pastas, breads, all that stuff.
Ketchup has sugar in it.
Ketchup has so much sugar in it. Actually, you'd be surprised. The easiest way to avoid sugar is just cook fresh vegetables and meat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, yeah, you can have some beef steak too if you want. I mean, it's fine to have a little bit more fat, but just stay away from the sugary stuff, because breads and pastas, once they're broken down in your body, it's just like eating a bunch of sugar. Your body treats it the same way. Okay, so then you eat your dinner at 6-ish, 7. Okay, now you're trying to just enjoy yourself, relax. So if you want to see a movie, that's fine. I wouldn't recommend seeing a movie for the first time that you are going to get really amped about and whatever, but something that maybe you've seen before that's just going to calm you down. And then you're in bed, done. You're asleep by 9 p.m. You're going to get an amazing night's rest. You're going to get up. This will be dependent on how far you have to drive for the test center. You get up. You're going to have your breakfast. You're going to chill out. And look, here's what I recommend for breakfast. Some eggs. Highlight it. Some eggs, oatmeal, and fresh fruit. Same principle applies. No sugar because you don't want to crash. You want like coffee. Like you're probably, most of you guys don't drink coffee, so don't drink it on the day of the test. For me, like when I took my standardized test, at least for the LSAT, when I took the bar exam, yeah, I drank coffee because that became part of my routine. So it's whatever is your routine. You want to follow that same principle. Okay, and then 7:30. So look, 7:30 is when you're going to arrive at the test center. This is going to get you there super, super early. And the reason why you do that is if you show up late, or if you even think there's a chance that you might be a little late or whatever, again, it's going to spike your anxiety levels, spike your adrenaline levels. And what's going to happen? You're going to run in, you're going to get all settled, and then you're going to be like, you take a sigh of relief, and then all those levels will drop, and it's going to make you tired. So get there super early, and that's it.
Awesome. I love it. I really, really appreciate your attention, both to the hard skills of like mental math and, et cetera, but then also the soft skills of sort of the life around you really affects your anxiety. And that really will, and not just your anxiety, but just even your body's ability to pay attention.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so now it's time for questions. A couple have come in, and I want to actually name, if you don't have a question, I would still love to hear from you. And it would be really helpful for both me and Huzefa to hear you say, what's your one biggest takeaway from today? Like, if you're going to change one thing about your math routines, what is that thing? What are you excited or curious to try? And I would love to hear that from you as well. So Jordan asked whether this routine that you just talked about can apply to other tests as well. And remember, he's the one who's going into college next year.
Sure. Okay. So the issue is, I mean, this applies to any, if you're talking, I assume you're talking about the routine of the day before the test. And yeah, I mean, it can apply to anything, but it's like to actually put this into practice when you're in college for all the tests based on classes and other obligations you have, it's not as realistic. I say this for the SAT and the ACT because I think usually it's on a Saturday, some cases a Sunday if you have to make special arrangements, but it's usually positioned in a way where you can actually let everything go for a night until you're done with it and then get back to work on whatever you have to do. College on a regular basis, I just don't think it's as realistic. But also those tests don't have as much gravity or weight as these particular standardized tests.
I would
But,
say
I mean,
maybe for college, the final exams. I mean, again, it may not be realistic to not be cramming, but if you really can plan your study schedule so that the night before your crucial final exams, you're able to have your chill out, your chill out process, I would recommend that.
that's true. Final exams, the final exam periods, your classes are done. Usually your homework's done, so you're just studying. I taught actually this morning, I teach for a company called Law Preview as well. It's prepares kids for the first year of law school. And what another rule that we give is same thing before finals, because in law school you don't have homework or quizzes or tests. You just have one final, and that just is so scary because that determines your entire grade. So you have to be really careful. But we tell people the night before every final exam that you have to stop studying at 4 p.m. And same thing is. I mean, that's kind of where I've developed this as well, because I use a similar strategy, or try to, in law school, except for my contracts exam, which I failed. I got an A on the exam, but my strategy failed because I was like barely got any sleep. But I got it worked out, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. So Lizzie just said these hints were helpful, and her mom knew about the 24 days of multiplication mastery, so she's going to be taking that soon. So yay, you'll see her in there. And then awesome. Vienna says that for students struggling with math, I'm pretty lopsided, great at reading and writing, not so great at math. Would you recommend the SAT or the ACT?
Okay, so well, first of all, I mean, the reason why I'm tempted to say the ACT is just because you have four subjects in the ACT. I would take some. I'm hearing a little bit of echo or something.
Okay, keep on talking, and it might be my headset, so I'll plug that in.
Okay. So anyways, okay, I'll just wait till you plug it in.
Try. It might be better now.
Yep. All right, cool. Okay, so with the ACT, right, you have the 4 different subjects. So the weight of the math portion is only about a quarter. Right now in the SAT, the math portion is about a third. In March, that's going to change to half because they're going back to 1600. So just from that standpoint, I would probably take the ACT. But at the same time, I don't like giving that advice, because I guarantee you, even if you don't think that you think it's lopsided, or you don't think you can master the math, it's nonsense. Coming from the side of you're struggling with the verbal, and can you make up that ground in like 3 or 6 months, that's a totally different question. Because the English language, learning the grammatical rules, getting a grasp of vocab, becoming a fast reader, those are skills that take years and years to cultivate. And math, I'm telling you, it's different. You can get people up to speed in a very short amount of time. So I mean, I would encourage you to try and take both, actually. And then you can decide to take practice tests for both, figure it out. But if you just don't go in with the mindset of, okay, the math part on the SAT is just going to be something that I'm not going to be able to improve. I'm telling you, if you put in the right time and you focus in the right way, you can, at a minimum, I have no doubt, at a minimum, sounds like you're a strong student. I would be shocked if you couldn't at least get it above a 600 on the SAT, but 700 and above is definitely possible. It just takes a lot of effort.
And I would recommend, when I send out the video for this, I also talked to Megan Dorsey in one of these free workshops, and I would encourage you, Vienna, to watch. She talked a lot about the new changes, like in specific, like real specifics about the new changes in the SAT. And a lot of you juniors are really going to be affected by this, because your October test is going to look different than the March test. And so I think it would be great to also watch that, and you'll get the links for that as well.
That's awesome. It looks like we've got a bunch of questions coming in here. Is it okay if we go over?
Yeah, we could go over by about 5 minutes or so. And okay. The anonymous attendee wanted to know if you have another quick math, like mental math trick. I mean, obviously you have your free course, and maybe actually you could just share your screen and show that, because that probably is where all these tricks.
Well, the mental math course is just for multiplication.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so it's 24 days to multiplication mastery. Off the top of my head, so I mean that's one that I use for 2-digit multiplication. But again, the foundation is all based on having a really firm grasp of single-digit multiplication. Let me think about that, because we only have a few minutes, and I'm going to see if I have if I come up with other ones, they'd be very specific to particular types of math. But right now, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else.
Great.
Okay, so now we have, let's see, for anyone on this webinar, SAT. Oh, okay. So should we mention what John has mentioned?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't you say
So
that?
John has said, for anyone on this webinar who's taking the SAT in the near future, he will offer free online SAT tutoring with no time or session limits. I
Wow.
Students across the town and across the ocean. So I guess is doing local and then also online tutoring. Okay, so that's from John. That's a great offer. All right, Giuliana from Brazil. How's my Portuguese, by the way?
She said it was great. She commented, saying, good job. She understood it.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Okay, so Giuliana, I'm taking the SAT. Oh, sweet, you're taking my SAT course on Udemy. I'm so glad. Okay, yes, you're going to try the power poses. Okay, awesome. And just one thing to remember, because actually some of my students on Udemy, because I have around 700 students now, some of them have been asking me for practice problems, because unlike other courses, I didn't include quizzes, which I may change. But the reason why I didn't is because my course is all it's all derived from the Big Blue Book for SAT practice problems. And what I have provided are PDFs. Now, if you'll notice, my whole methodology, it's all frequency based, meaning the questions are organized and the topics are organized based on the most frequent ones first, and so on and so forth. And it tells you, okay, I found these to occur 10% of the time off of a test sample of like 10 tests. These occur 5% of the time, etc. So with each of those categories, let's say you have data and analysis, or let's say you have single variable equations, there's an accompanying PDF that I provide that tells you every single problem that I've categorized for single variable equations, whatever it may be, in the Blue Book. So you take that, when you're working on a particular area, like, hey, I'm having trouble with data and analysis questions, print out the PDF and just go through each one of those problems in a row and just blast through them. It's fine even if you've taken the test before. Just go through those problems again and get the practice of how to approach those. Okay, so just for anybody who's currently in the course or thinking about signing up. Okay,
awesome.
Claire's got a question.
Yeah, I think it's Kiara, or
I'm sorry, Ciara, yeah. Right?
And this is, by the way, an 8th grader. I think I'm remembering that correctly.
Awesome. It's so cool to have middle school students on here taking school seriously at that age. Okay, when I take math tests, I feel anxiety because it's timed. Okay. All right. So when you look, let me tell you something first of all about stress and about anxiety. When I was in law school, I interviewed a prosecutor in Chicago who was in his 50s. He's a famed prosecutor. He'd been doing all sorts of stuff. He'd been working. He was an actor before he went to law school, and he's been worked on thousands of cases. And every time he's up in court performing, talking. I said, all right, so when was the point in my naivety at the time? I said, at what point did you stop getting nervous? He's like, hey, what are you talking about? I get nervous every time before I step into course. He's been doing it for about 30 years. So the point is, if you care about something, you're going to there's going to be a tinge of nervousness that's going to take over at the beginning. Hopefully, eventually it'll fade away. But the key is the way you can combat it. The best way to combat it, at least to a certain point, is by practice, is by having as much familiarity and as much preparation as possible. Because then it takes away, it makes you feel comfortable that, like, okay, I think I've covered my bases. And then also, if you don't practice, you could see something and maybe figure it out. But instantly during that time where you're like, okay, wait, how do I do this? I don't remember this. Now I have to think about it. That's going to cause stress and anxiety. Whereas, like for me now, to the point I have it with, anytime I see a SAT problem, there's something in the back of my head that like automatically knows how to do it, even if like my conscious brain doesn't know yet. And that's very reassuring. And that only comes with practice and preparation. Okay, let me try and get this last one.
Well, and actually, I want to just say quickly, because we can go 2 more minutes. It's not a big deal. People will hang up as they need to. But I did want to say to you, Kiara, that a lot of the things that Huzefa has mentioned also helps for you. The breathing, the coherent breathing that he talked about would work for you. The power poses would work for you. The practicing practicing at home in a time situation would. So you might want to go back when I send out the recording and watch this again and sort of make a list of like the top 10 things you can do to lower your anxiety. Even the tapping would be useful for you.
Awesome. And Marcia, I just read it's more of a comment. It's really nice. Thank you for sending that. Also, for you guys out there so I do also do private tutoring both through Skype. I have 3 students right now that I tutor online, and then of course I do it in person if you're in the Los Angeles area. But hopefully, Gretchen, I don't know if you're going to post my contact information, but if anybody does want to work with me on a one-on-one basis, just hit me up and I'm available.
Give them your website now, and then I'll also give the link when I send it out.
Sure. You know what, though? The way that people usually, the best way to contact me, just shoot me an email. Let me just write my email, okay? Let me do that. Probably be easier.
And I've got my whiteboard here too. I can. Oh, you got it.
Okay, so let's just write it in big letters. Oh, there's on my Udemy website stuff. Okay, well, I'll just write it up here. So we have Huzefa. Kapadia@gmail.com.
Where are you typing? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah.
So this is my email address, and just shoot me an email. And even if you just have if you have a quick question, it's not like don't feel like you have to actually take me on as a tutor to ask me something. Just if you have a question, or even I've done this for some of my Udemy students actually. I've set up little quick Skype sessions. I did this for one of my students in New Jersey, where she just had a bunch of questions that she couldn't figure out. So I pulled out my whiteboard and we just did them together. Complimentary, of course. That offer, of course, extends to anybody who's purchased my Udemy 800 course within reason. As long as I can spare the time, I'm happy to do it. I do this and I work with kids because I find it super fun. So I would love the opportunity to get to meet you and see if I can give you a hand.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We will have the recording to everybody within 24 hours, and I'll have all the links to the articles that he showed. Are we able to do that? Are we able to do links to the articles?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Great. So
it's all on my website, Scalar Learning. You just go to the blog section.
Yeah.
And so you can.
And you can share those links directly with me, and then I'll make sure that they have the actual direct links in the video. And otherwise, thank you so much, Huzefa, and thank you everyone for being here and for asking really rich questions. And Lizzie says thanks. So you're so welcome.
Thanks, Lizzie.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.